Hi everybody, I'm Cristina Mussinelli. I'm the Secretary General of the LIA Foundation and the co-chair of the Publishing Business Group in W3C. I've been requested to provide you a brief overview of the European Accessibility Act, that is an European directive on accessibility of product and service. And slide 1. The directive has been approved in 2019. Every member state should implement it in its national legislation by June 2022, and the directive will enter in force by June 2025. Slide 2. The goal of the directive is to create an accessible ecosystem, removing all the obstacles that are now existing due to the different and divergent requirements in the different member states. The directive will apply not only to European organizations, but to all organizations willing to sell product and service in Europe. This means that also the international organization in our field, like Amazon, Kobo, or every international publisher willing to sell in Europe should comply with the requirement of the legislation. Slide 3. The directive is quite wide and includes a lot of products and services. That means, for example, the ticketing services, the bank, ATM machine, software and operating system for smartphone, tablet, and different devices. But what is really relevant for us is that include e-books, e-commerce, and reading solution, either devices and software reading solution. The directive, both for product and service, foresee three main elements: the compliance with defined accessibility requirement, the possibility of conformance, and the possibility to have authorities for the enforcement and the penalty who will control the implementation of the legislation. In particular, slide 4, the compliance will be on the compliance for the requirement, the compliance for the product with the requirement of Europe. In particular, they should have the CE mark that demonstrate that they are fully accessible. In the directive, there already are some high-level requirements, for example, for the accessibility of product and service. There are examples of what accessible means, and there are also some information about the conformity of product and the assessment of what is called disproportionate burden, that is a possibility to demonstrate that to be compliant with the directive will be too complex or too costly, but this should be demonstrated in relationship with the advantage of the final end user, and should be approved by the Commission. There are information that are related with the standard, and slide 5, and there are different standards that are included in the directive related with the publishing industry. There are file format, so the kind of file format that is used to produce ebooks, the website and platform format. There is the hardware and software reading solution standard, and there is also the metadata standard, because the directive requires that every product and service describe in a detailed way which has the accessibility feature. In this field, we have done a specific work in W3C and also with other organizations to demonstrate that the already existing standard available in the publishing sector, in particular EPUB for the format, ONIX and schema.org for the metadata, are compliant with the directive. If you want more detail of what has been done, you can look at the presentation of Avnish Singh, and he explained what we have done in W3C. Slide 6, ebooks are considered as a service. This means that all the actors in the value chain should comply with the requirement, not only publishers who need to produce digital books, but also distributors, retailers, aggregators, e-commerce website, and also the mobile version of all this organization. Software and reading solution, DRM solution. DRM should not impede the possibility to disable user to access content, and metadata, as I explained before, should be not only produced by the publisher, but should be displayed to the end user in the retailer website. Slide 7. This is a brief description that we have created in the LIA Foundation to highlight the role of the actor and to describe which are the main activity that every actor should do. Slide 8. There are enforcement and penalties, and enforcement and penalty will be defined at national level. So right now I cannot provide you more information on that, but I'm quite sure that by 2022, when the legislation will be implemented in every national country, we will have more information. Slide 9. There are some exemptions. So it will be possible for micro enterprise not to be compliant with the legislation. For micro enterprise in Europe are considered organizations with less than 10 employees or with a turnover lower than 2 million euro. There is another option that is the disproportionate burden. That means that, as I explained before, if it's too costly or too complicated to produce an accessible product or service, you should demonstrate to the Commission why and which are the reason and the advantage in comparison with the benefit of disabled people. There is another possibility that is the fundamental alteration of the product and the service. I don't think this will apply in a precise way to the publishing industry because there is no alteration in producing accessible content or website for the publishing industry. There are some kind of books that the directive consider more complicated at the state of the art of the standard and the technology that can be less accessible than other. They should be accessible at the state of the art. And these kind of books are comics, books, illustrated book for children, and art book. For illustrated books, I should say that they are considered only books where the illustration is prevailing, while if you have a books for children that is mostly text and have some images, I think that should not be considered as an exemption because you can, at the state of the art of the technology, make them accessible. Last, but I think relevant information, slide 10, is that there are illegitimate reasons, so some reasons that you should not consider as possible exemption, and they are lack of time, lack of priority, and lack of knowledge. So I really suggest you that you start considering accessibility and start moving now, because accessibility is a journey. If you don't start, you will never arrive. Thank you very much, and bye.